Hey guys, so in this video we're going to talk about the work history report form that Social Security sends out. You'll notice at the bottom of it, it says SSA 3369BK. If you're looking at that form, you're looking at the right one. This form is without question, and especially if you're over 50 years old or during the course of your case you're going to turn 50 years old. Without question, this is one of the most important forms you'll fill out during the entire period of your disability case. Basically, to kind of take a step back and tell you what the purpose of this form is, this form allows you to list out all of the work that you've done in the past 15 years, but even beyond that, what it does is it asks you to list what your job duties were in a given position. So I'm going to give you some tips. I mean, the form here is pretty straightforward, but I want you to think about some things when you're filling this form out. The first page that you'll see when you're filling out this form, it's just a cover sheet, a work history report form like this. It asks you all of your job titles that you've had. Again, only the past 15 years, before applying for disability. So you'll list out the jobs that you've had in the past 15 years. Pretty simple, except one thing that I do want to talk about. If you had a job where you had elements of other jobs in it, I want to give you an example. I want you to take my advice here. Say you were hired to be a cafeteria attendant somewhere. Somebody who goes around a cafeteria, maybe like a busboy is another way of saying it. Social Security considers that to be a light job, but a few hours a day, you were also supposed to, be back in the kitchen or behind the kitchen washing dishes. Even though the job title might have been cafeteria attendant, I want to make sure that you include the elements of the dishwashing part of your job on this form. So instead of just writing under job title that you were a cafeteria attendant, I want you to put cafeteria attendant / dishwasher. Okay, that's very important. Another example that I see a lot of times is somebody who, their job title is receptionist or secretary. Maybe they work in like a small manufacturing business. Here in Cleveland, we have a lot like that, which by itself is like a sedentary or light job. But as part of their job duties, they have to take delivery of maybe some boxes that come in and move them to the back in the warehouse. And those boxes can weigh, up to 50 pounds. I want you to put that, for example, you're a receptionist / delivery receiver or something of that. I just want to make it clear that you had elements of multiple jobs that were required of you, especially the elements of the jobs that you've had in the past that were more demanding. That can be very important to helping me help you prove that you're disabled. So this is kind of the cover sheet. After that, the rest of the packet is just the same form repeated. Here it says job title 1. You'll fill one out of these for every job that you've had in the past 15 years. But again, it's just the same copied form over and over again. So, to kind of talk about some of the different things on this form, I tell this to my clients a lot. When you're filling out disability paperwork, put your pride aside. Okay, people love, they were hired in and their job title was that they were a resident manager, even though most of what their job was maintenance work, or they were a store supervisor, even though what they really were just doing was stock work, but they had another person that they would occasionally help train. No ability to hire, fire, anything like that. It can be very important to a case to make yourself, it can be more difficult to win a case, the more you add words to your job title like supervisor, manager, especially if you don't have any mental impairments, because those jobs, supervisors, managers, even if you had heavier requirements in your job, a lot of those skills might transfer to lighter jobs that Social Security could say you can do. So put your pride aside when you're filling out the form. To kind of go through this, a lot of the things that are up here, it asks you to describe your job, what you did all day. Start with the things that you spent most of your time doing, but in particular, start with the things that were the heaviest or the most mentally challenging. List those out here. It asks you in the job if you did a bunch of different things like using machines, tools, equipment. These are just yes/no questions. You'll know very simply, there's really no way to get tripped up here. But this is where I lose people sometimes, and these next questions here can make a difference in the case. It asks here, for example, in this job, how many hours each day did you walk, stand, sit, climb? It is extremely important that you list the most that you ever had to do in a workday. So if in a workday, on average you only had to walk or stand for 4 out of 8 hours, but there were some days when you had to be on your feet for all 8 hours, I want you to put, if you don't just write that you walked or stood for 8 hours, put 4 through 8. Okay, I want you to put the most that you had to do, because if now you're limited such that you can't be on your feet for for more than 4 hours in an 8-hour day, and there were times when in your job you would have to be on your feet in either standing or walking for 8 hours, you can't do that job anymore. On those days, you'd be unable to return to your past relevant work. Keep that same thing in mind when you're answering the rest of these questions about climbing, stooping, kneeling. Down here, it asks about the heaviest weight you have to lift. This is another question that I see people slip into traps because they don't really think about it. Really think about the heaviest amount you had to lift at work, even if it was something just occasional. If there were times, again, when you were the receptionist, but you had to take delivery of packages that weighed 75 pounds, you need to make sure that you're putting on here that the heaviest weight you lifted, wasn't just 10 pounds, because that's what you had to lift most days. I definitely want you to really think about the most that you have to do. Then the question below asks, how much did you frequently have to lift? And maybe it wasn't that common that you'd have to lift 50 pounds or more. And that's, here it would be okay to put that you were only frequently lifting 10 pounds. But it's very important that you fill this form out correctly and get this information on here. Your answers on this form, particularly if you're over 50 years old or you're going to be turning 50 during the course of your case, will and can make the difference in whether or not you're approved benefits. Again, this all just comes back down to helping me help you. So I hope that this video helped explain the work history report form. Thank you.
Finally, girl, the disability warriors, fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves.